Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started in just a minute. We're so glad that you're here. Thank you so much for joining us for our first in a 10-part Lunch, Learn, and Lead series. We're going to wait just another minute to see if anybody else jumps in and joins us, but we're thrilled that you're here. Thank you. All right, I know that some people will be joining us and popping in, but we want to maximize our hour time today. And I'd like to start off by introducing myself, welcoming all of y'all. My name is Meredith White, and I am pleased to welcome you to the first in our 10-part MSML Champions Lunch, Learn, and Lead series. Today, I am honored to introduce our featured speaker and facilitator, Antoine Valentone. He's a proud 2023 alumni of the Pepperdine Graziadio Master of Science in Management and Leadership program. And he currently serves as the Vice President of Customer Service or Customer Success for Present, which is an impressive business communication platform that prioritizes people so that they can achieve effective communication through strategies, tools, and techniques. Antoine embodies the Grazie a mantra of For the World Leadership as he continues to take his degree program to another level of give back. And he uses his YouTube channel as well as his personal network. He intentionally collaborates with MSML faculty, students, alumni, as well as community supporters to extend the conversation of leadership. And if you're interested in learning more, we're going to put out his YouTube channel link in the chat. You might recognize some familiar faces from that channel. So thank you, Antoine, so much for your leadership and particularly for kicking off our series with our first ever conversation. And we're looking forward to learning from you today. I'll pass it to
Thanks
you.
so much. Thanks, Meredith. Appreciate the intro and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining. Let me share my screen and then we'll get going here. All right, wonderful. So let's get going here. As promised, the topic today is going to be leadership pitfalls and how to avoid them. And the first thing I want to do just right out of the gate is really just thank everybody for attending. I know that there's probably a million other things you could be doing during this time. So I'm super grateful you would carve out some of your time to spend with me. So I'm going to do my best to make sure everybody walks away from today's session feeling like this was a good use of your time. The goal is essentially, I'm going to share sort of like my personal journey, leadership journey, and some of the experiences that I've encountered in my professional and personal life. And the goal really is, again, not just to make this informative and educational, but also entertaining. So I have a tendency to self-deprecate. I'll tell some dad jokes along the way, really just to make this sort of fun. And hopefully everybody walks away with some actionable insights, maybe just have you think about things differently, and really want to make this conversational. So I am going to leave some time at the end for questions, comments, any feedback people have, or even if there's something that maybe you're struggling with currently that you want to bounce off me or anyone else in the audience. And of course, we can always continue the conversation offline. So there's usually at this point in the presentation when the speaker tells you how amazing they are and all the wonderful things that they've done. And I'm not going to do that. In fact, I'm going to do the opposite. I'll just going to come right out and say, unlike Fred Astaire, who was known for inventing dance moves, I am not the world's greatest leader. I'm not the world's greatest anything. The fact of the matter is I'm human. I make plenty of mistakes in my life. I've said and done a lot of stupid things. But, what can I say? I did my best to learn from those experiences, and I'm happy to share some of those experiences with you all again, so maybe you can, learn from my experience as well. The one thing that I will sort of tell you about me, I guess, is what I value most is family. I've been married for over 24 years. I've been with my wife for 27 of those years. I have two children with my wife, and I would say that I'm super grateful for, their love and support. And, I wouldn't be half the man I am today if it wasn't for my wife. She accepted me for who I am, and I'm a better person for it. So, super grateful for the family. And the reason I get out of bed every morning, sort of why I exist, is really to help people. I like to help people improve their lives, overcome obstacles, get to where they're going. And my personal values are empathy, humility, authenticity, and I've committed myself to continuously learning. And my goal again is to share what I know with others so they can learn as well. Now, I haven't always been sort of this enlightened. It's taken me a long time to get here, and obviously I still have a long way to go. So that's part of what I wanted to do here today is just sort of share with you some of the pitfalls that I encountered in my life and how I sort of overcame them from a leadership perspective, how I got to where I am to from where I was. And, in the some of these are sort of common or things that maybe are you've heard discussed in the past. Others maybe not so much, but yet we still experience them and we feel them. And sometimes it helps to hear from others' experiences, so you know that you're not alone and these things happen. So I'll just give you a little bit of background about me and sort of what I call my origin story. And this is a very interesting uh, story that I wanted to share with you just for a little bit of context. Okay. I'm only sharing this from the sake of context. So I was born in Brooklyn, New York, back in the 70s. My father is Italian. My mother's from Uruguay. They were immigrants. They came to the US. And we went to Catholic school. My brother and I we went to Catholic school from first through like 10th grade. And if you want to know what Brooklyn was like back in the 70s, it was not as cool as it is today. Uh, if you know the movie Saturday Night Fever, that's basically what Brooklyn was back in the 70s. And you see that elevator train there on the left. I lived underneath one of those. So, yeah, it's come a long way since then. But in any case, went to a Catholic school called Regina Pacis Catholic School. It was connected to the church. It's a very interesting memory that I have from when I was in school there. I was in the school library one day, and I saw up on the wall, as far as I can remember, a poster that looked like this. It was basically a cheetah or a leopard that was trying to wash away its spots. And I really didn't understand what it meant. I saw the caption, it said a leopard can't change the spots. And I was, I don't know, maybe 9, 10 years old. I was pretty young. So I asked the sister or nun that was working in the library, I said, hey, what does that mean? And she said, it means you're a bad kid and you always will be one. And now, in her defense, I was a bad kid. I mean, not that I was committing crimes, but I was just kind of a socially awkward kid that I tried to use humor to gain social acceptance, and I wasn't very good at it. So, as a result, I was also a bad student, horrible grades, and yeah, uh, she was probably right at the time, I guess. Um, and I can't honestly say I remember how I felt about it when she said that. I don't know if I felt bad about it or what, but it definitely stuck with me. I've never forgotten it. I've thought about it a lot over the years. So, more to come on this story, and you'll understand why I shared it with you in a moment. By the way, let me just do an audio check because I can't see anybody. Can I just confirm you guys can see and hear me?
Looks good.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks. Thanks.
amazing so far.
Okay, thanks. All right, so let me tell you about my leadership arc now. So, from a leadership perspective, and I've been in leadership roles now for over 15 years of my professional career. Originally, obviously, as an individual contributor, and then, I sort of worked my way up and I got a leadership role. And as leaders, and in the corporate space that I work in, I'm tasked with ensuring that my team produces outcomes, achieves certain targets, etc. Right? And there's a number of different ways as a leader I can go about helping ensure that we deliver on those results. And this continuum of leadership behaviors is something that I learned during my MSML coursework. When I looked at it, it to me, it looked like sort of a spectrum or kind of like a progression. Like, okay, I get it. When I started my leadership career, I wasn't very good at it, and I probably leaned into my authority because I didn't know any better. And then over the years, I sort of worked my way further to the right, where um, I was more supportive of the team and I was trying to be inspirational as a leader as opposed to authoritative. Um, to achieve again the sort of outcomes or the goals. And then right around the same time, I went to go see Dr. Jordan Peterson speak at an event not too far away from where I live, and he told a story about Noah's Ark, and I understood it in a very different way than I ever did before. Up until I heard Dr. Peterson speak, I always knew the story of Noah's Ark, and I just thought it meant, hey, the world really had gone, in the wrong direction. God was upset. He told Noah to go build an ark because there was a storm coming. It was going to flood the earth and wash away the sin and sort of start all over, right? And I always just thought it meant, hey, you better behave, otherwise you're not going to make it. um, and then when I heard Dr. Jordan Peterson tell the story, he mentioned that obviously the symbolism of it is that there will be challenges, there will be crucibles, there will be things that we face in life, and they will be difficult, and we have to build ourselves up. We have to build ourselves up to withstand those and endure those and overcome them. And I never really thought of it in that way, but the shape of the arc stood with me because I was thinking about the previous slide, which was like a straight line from left to right, sort of like a progression. But then I thought, well, what if it was more of like an arc that was similar to what I understood in most movies or books, which follow this sort of pattern? It's essentially an arc where you have the protagonist in the beginning that sort of evolves and through a series of events. And at the end of the movie or book, the character is changed and does sort of like a 180 or a arc, right? So I had that in my head. I sort of put those together, and it just made more sense to me that my leadership journey was actually more of an arc as opposed to a straight line from left to right, either or, either authoritative, selfish leader versus inspirational leader, servant leadership, etc. So with this framework in mind, thank you for bearing with me. I will now finally sort of address the specific sort of leadership pitfalls. Some, again, maybe you've heard before, others maybe not so much. So the first one for me, this is sort of the opening of the arc, sort of where I was at the beginning of the journey, was self-deception. So when I got my first sort of leadership role, I didn't really know how bad I was at it. I was definitely leaning into my authority that came along with the title. Um, I was definitely being driven by the desire for status, for money. I measured my success based on how big I could grow my team. And, the worst part was I just had no idea how wrong that was. I was just totally oblivious to it. I thought I was the world's greatest leader, and I definitely had blind spots. I had no clue how bad I was. And not only that, I was pretty closed-minded. I wasn't open to any feedback. In fact, I remember working for one company where they talked about doing, as part of the performance reviews, giving the employees an opportunity to share 360 feedback. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to hear that. I'm afraid what they might say. Uh, so I was ignorant. The bottom line is I was ignorant and I didn't know it. So now we move on to the next stage, the character arc in this story is the inciting incident. So I was failing. I was in this leadership role, but I was failing. Not only was my team not succeeding, not achieving their goals, I was suffering sort of the consequences of that. And I had one person tell me specifically during a one-on-one these exact words: I'm succeeding in spite of you, not because of you. And it really hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, what? I was like shocked, and I wasn't even mad at the person. I was actually grateful that they told me because I was so oblivious and nobody had ever told me like that to my face. They probably felt those things and said those things behind my back, but nobody told me. So it got me thinking that maybe I should start to look in the mirror. So I want to pause for a moment and share with you a clip from one of my favorite movies, uh, Creed, where Rocky is training Apollo Creed's son, Adonis, and pick it up after that. Okay, so let me just check. Did you guys hear that audio?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, getting feedback. Um, I sort of went out and started gathering feedback from others just to sort of confirm what I had heard. And I decided that, yeah, I needed to take a long, hard look in the mirror. And I needed to realize that I was causing all of my own problems. In fact, somebody that I used to work for that I have a lot of respect for told me, you need to stop setting yourself on fire. Like I was doing it to myself. I was responsible for all the sort of issues I was sort of dealing with. So I moved into this next stage, which I call self-awareness, where now I was like, okay, I looked in the mirror. It's a hard thing to do, but as much as it hurt, I'm going to take ownership and I'm going to commit myself to learning from my mistakes and being accountable to my team and doing my best to sort of improve and just get better and better now that I had finally admitted that there was definitely room for improvement. And bringing you back to the story from when I was a little kid at school and seeing that poster in the school library about the leopard, I remembered I was going to prove that sister or that nun wrong. I was going to prove to her that I could change. I could transform myself with enough effort and hard work. So I committed myself to doing so. And essentially, I had to change my mindset. I knew that rather than be closed-minded, I had to open my ears and my heart and my mind to feedback from others and be able to make adjustments, right? And my goal ultimately was to sort of earn the trust and respect that does not come with a title. Just because you get a title, leadership title, etc., that does not mean that you're a leader. You might have authority, but it doesn't mean that people will follow you willingly. They might do so because they feel they have to but they wouldn't if you did not have that authority over them. And I just really started focusing like with a microscope on all my failures. Everywhere I could identify room for improvement. And I committed myself to getting better. And you might say, or you might think that that was the end of the story, right? Success, transformation. Like I went from being a tyrant to this amazing leader. But actually, that's not the end of the story. There's more. And this is now where I'll transition to some of the pitfalls that maybe you don't hear discussed as much on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever. So the next point in the character arc is circumstances that alter viewpoints and struggle forces growth. And for me, this was something that I called self-loathing. So a weird thing happened that despite making improvements in myself, and I think getting better after having changed my mindset and opening my eyes to knowing that I needed to improve, is I sort of became obsessed with perfection. And I was growing more and more sort of frustrated with the fact that I couldn't eliminate all of the mistakes. Despite all my efforts, I was still making mistakes and some of the same mistakes over and over and over again. And I identified a pattern that there was definitely certain things that would upset me, make me angry. And even, I just couldn't stop myself. It was just sort of a very difficult thing to overcome. And it just took a sort of negative sort of toll on me. And I had this sort of mindset of pessimism where no matter how hard I tried, there was always room for improvement and I had to keep pushing and it was never enough. And I had this weird mantra that I used to live by that I would hope for the best, but my whole plan was always plan for the worst. The worst is coming. I have to prepare for it. You can't relax. You can't enjoy. You just have to keep sort of um, looking for areas for improvement. And, it was difficult. Despite all my efforts, I couldn't stop making these mistakes. Despite these efforts, I couldn't make my team entirely happy. Um, I was doing my best to create the perfect sort of environment, culture where they could grow, where they could thrive. And yet, while some people responded really well, and those were wonderful relationships, and there was always some team members that just weren't happy. I wasn't doing enough. I couldn't devise the perfect comp plan. The offsite wasn't good enough. The food wasn't, good enough. And it was disappointing. Like I really took it personally. I was like, gosh, I'm trying, I'm trying, I'm trying. I'd go back to the drawing board, and yet I still couldn't get to a place where I felt like, everyone was happy, let's say, or producing. And then one of the mistakes I made is I put so much time and energy into winning my team. I forgot that I also have peers and my boss that I need to put time and energy into making sure that they know what I'm doing and they feel like my contributions are sort of valued. So, for example, I worked in one company where I felt like I really did do a good job of winning my team, and I used to fight to sort of protect them. Um, and as a result, some of my peers in other departments hated me because I was so staunch at protecting them. So I think the message was you can never lose sight of, at least in my case, as maybe a middle manager. Yes, I have direct reports, but I also have peers and people I need to report to, and I needed to put ample time and energy into developing those relationships and making sure I've earned their trust and respect. So I went down this downward spiral and I finally hit rock bottom, as they say in the movies. And for me, I'm a verbal communicator. I do not like to write things down. I don't like to type. It's very easy for me to talk. But I decided to just, and I don't know why I did this, but I decided just to write down on a piece of paper all the things that I hated about myself, all the things that I was mad at myself about. And it felt good. It felt good to sort of write it all down on paper. And then I just put the piece of paper away. But I mean, I really unloaded on myself, right? But I put it all down on paper and it sort of made it real. And then this was during the time that I was at Pepperdine, and I moved into the next phase. Success and failures change the way the characters see themselves in their world. And then I called this phase self-love. So Professor McCluskey was one of my teachers, and I shared during one of our classes with the class something that I had been sort of dealing with at the time, which made it clear, that I wasn't in a good place. And Professor McCluskey's exact words were, be kind to Antoine, give yourself some grace. And it was just bizarre that that's all I needed to hear from somebody else to sort of snap me out of it. And it couldn't have come at a better time. So I went back to that piece of paper that I had written down, all the things I hate about myself. And I don't know how much time went on in between when I wrote it to when I went back to it, but I just ripped it all up. I ripped up that piece of paper and I threw it in the garbage, and I swore that I would never beat myself up about all of my shortcomings. So then I finally was able to, thanks to Professor McCluskey and others that sort of let me express myself and heard me out, I moved into the end of that arc, which allowed me to change for better, for worse. And I call this self-acceptance. So coming back to the story I told you about when I was a kid, going to the Catholic high school, part of self-acceptance, and I didn't understand it at the time, and there was so many years that went by in between that incident and when I finally made the realization, I spent the majority of my life trying to prove this teacher wrong. I tried to prove that I could change and that she was wrong about me. But I finally just accepted, you know what? I get it now. And of course, for those of you that know, it's actually a biblical reference from the Bible. And then again, silly me, I didn't even realize that. I should have known, obviously, because I went to a Catholic school. But I just accepted and I stopped being sort of angry at her and I stopped being angry at myself. And I was like, you know what? She's right. There's certain things about me that just who I am. And there's nothing that's ever going to change that. And it doesn't make it okay. It just means that I'm human. And that's okay. So in this phase, I just basically told myself that, yeah, I'm not perfect, but it's okay. And that also that no matter how hard I try, I'll never be able to make everybody happy, but that's okay too. I know my heart's in the right place and I'm trying my best. And I think most people will recognize that. And I know that there's a few that won't, but that's all right. I'm not going to stop trying. And the other thing I learned is that ultimately I can't help anybody as a leader that doesn't want to be helped. And that's okay too. Some people will respond well and be open to sort of coaching and feedback and are willing to sort of reciprocate, let's say, but there's others that won't. And I just had to learn to live with that and sort of let it go. Um, the interesting point there is, and one of the things I sort of had to realize is sort of striking a balance between, yes, of course, as a leader, I want to help enable the team. I want to create this culture and environment where they can thrive and be at their best and perform. But the truth is, it is a two-way street. They have to hold up their end of the bargain. If I've removed all the obstacles, if I've provided all the tools, I've provided a little training, now they have to bring the effort. They have to bring the passion. They have to bring the energy. And in order to succeed. And some people just aren't willing to do that. And in those cases, then maybe it is appropriate, to have a different conversation and use some of the authority that comes with being a leader, where you have to make decisions about who's on the team and who isn't on the team, well, which isn't fun, is not one of the fun parts of the job, but ultimately necessary. But my mindset has been to basically stop focusing so much on the mistakes and sort of my shortcomings and celebrate the wins. And the reality is that, despite not being perfect, I had improved quite a bit. I had changed quite a bit. I had come a really long way. And I should celebrate those things more and stop beating myself up about maybe, the few things that weren't improving enough or at all. So I changed my mindset and I just decided that I was just going to be more positive and optimistic about life and the future in general. That there's always going to be problems and issues that need to be worked on. But the reality is, although my life's not perfect, I'm pretty blessed and I feel super grateful and I thank God every day. So I really shouldn't have anything to complain about. So that brings me back to sort of the beginning and what I call starting a new arc after completing the previous arc. The way I thought about it is that your life's journey or even is full of different arcs as you age and as you grow. You'll go through these phases. So my new sort of arc that I'm starting, that I'm at the beginning of, and this sort of happened at the end of 2023, I think was about the timing where basically it had been 6 months after graduating. So I graduated August of 2023. And then it took me sort of 6 months to get to the point where I decided that I wasn't entirely happy, so I needed to make some changes. And specifically, I looked at a few different areas and taking from the learnings from my coursework. Again, ultimately, to set myself up for success, I knew I had to make some changes. Part of this also has to do with my age. So this arc that I just sort of completed started about 10 years ago, right? So I'm 54 now. I think this journey that I just told you about started around 44. So I think my age had a lot to do with it, where I was sort of reflecting on, hey, I'm going to be turning 50. What does that mean? 50 is sort of like midlife. Let me reflect on the first half of my life as I get ready to enter sort of the new life, the second phase of my life. And one of the things that I learned is like life is really, really short, and time is our most valuable and precious asset. And I didn't want to waste it on anything that didn't set me up for success or ultimately make me happy. So that meant making some changes in my life, not just personally, but professionally. So, as an example, um, while money is important and definitely was one of the sort of motivators in the past. Obviously, we all need money to pay our bills. We need to be able to sustain ourselves and our families. It shouldn't be why I do something. That should be the outcome of doing something that you love and that you really enjoy. So I discovered sort of what I was good at and what I enjoyed doing. And I was able to identify what I didn't like doing. And I had a conversation with my boss, and we agreed on sort of transforming my role where I got to do more of what I really liked and that I was really good at and less of what I didn't like. So it was really great that we were able to sort of make this adjustment um, where I feel like I have alignment between what are my sort of personal values and what I enjoy, which is ultimately helping people. So I've been in the customer success function as a leader for many years, and if not my entire career, really, where I was helping customers. And I didn't even really even realize why I was in this role, but I get satisfaction, I get energy from knowing I'm helping customers achieve their outcomes, overcome their pain points, etc., with our business solutions. But then I also wanted to add to that, well, I want to help employees and not just the ones that work for me in my org, but I want to help all employees. So part of my role became, hey, I'm available to anyone that just wants to talk and needs help. And I'm going to do my best to sort of help you overcome whatever it is that you're sort of dealing with. So it was a leap of faith, to sort of have that conversation. I wasn't sure what the outcome of the conversation was going to be when I went into it, but it's been now a year and a little over a year since I sort of made that change. And I have to say, I'm really having a great time and I'm really super happy and I'm feeling blessed every day. So, I mean, at the end of this, I can tell you that right now I'm still ignorant, but I think a lot less than I used to be. I still have a lot to learn, and I'll keep working on becoming less ignorant, but overall, I'm feeling like I'm in a good place. So I've got one more slide I'll show you. I included some bonus material if you're interested, just to sort of wrap things up here. Yeah, there you go, bonus material. So one thing I'll share with you guys is just overall sort of success that has been sort of something that I've worked hard to strive towards is uh, having a healthy balance in three key areas, not just to be a successful leader, but a successful human being, and really achieve our maximum potential. It's focusing on three key areas on a high level, which I believe is focusing on developing your body, your mind, and your spirit. And I can say in my early days, when I was much younger, I focused primarily on physical fitness. Didn't really work too much on my mental sort of fitness or mental development, or even my spiritual development. But I can say that um, at this point, I'm feeling really, really good. And I think it's because I put equal amount of energy into all of these three areas uh, that help me sort of, go to bed feeling great at the end of the day, like I added value to someone's life. I helped someone, whether it was a customer or a fellow employee, and I wake up in the morning super energized, feeling anxious to get back, on the clock and helping people. I will say that um, part of this means being a little bit selfish. And what I mean by that is that I do carve out some time very early in the morning. I get up at 4 in the morning every day just to go to the gym. Um, I do that because I know my wife and my kids are still sleeping, and I don't want to be away from them when they're awake. I want to be available for them without any distractions. So I intentionally go, the gym from like 4:30 to 6, and I just work on myself. And I will say that I'm not so giving during that time. I'm sort of in my own world, and I'm focusing on myself. And even that was hard for me because I would say if you ran into me during that time, I probably wouldn't be as friendly and I wouldn't be as nice. But that's because I need that time for myself to work on myself to ensure that when in public or I'm interacting, with people at work, I can give 100% of myself. I need a little bit of time for myself to just work on these areas so I can be at my best the rest of the day. So that's everything I've got for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing now. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. I couldn't see anybody. There was no sort of feedback, so I couldn't um, make any adjustments. But I'll shut up now and just open it up for questions, comments, challenges. If anybody wants to share maybe something they've experienced similar. If you liked it, that's great, and I appreciate it. But really, what I'm open to hearing is like, again, questions or challenges that help me think differently, as I'm always open to learning.
Go ahead, Annalise.
First of all, fantastic presentation. Thank you so much for sharing your obstacles, your crucifixes, as we learned at the beginning of the
Yeah.
MSML program.
Yeah.
So really enjoyed that journey with you. I just had a couple of questions uh, because of your presentation, obviously. First of all, when you were in the beginning stages, when you were more of what I took from more like a more of an authoritative leader, uh, did you have people that were counterparts who were more inspirational? And did that ever, for lack of a better word, offend you? So first part of my question, I'm asking this from experience, so
Yeah.
picking your brain here. And then second part is when you were that more authoritative leader, and you said towards the end you had said, "I can't help anyone that does not want to be helped."
Yeah.
How did your reaction or thought to that statement change as you grew as a leader?
Ah, yeah. Okay. So two questions I heard. So the first one, as far as like when I was in the beginning of my arc, being very ignorant and oblivious, I was so into myself, I didn't know or care what anybody else was doing. It was just me, 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 me. So if there were good leaders around me, I wouldn't have known it because I just wasn't paying attention. I'm sure there were, I hope. But I just wasn't, it was just very selfish. Um, I did not start to care about helping others until I reached the self-awareness stage. But then what led to some of the self-loathing was the frustration around, gosh, why can't I get through to everyone? Why is it that despite all my effort, there's some people that just are still not happy? They're complaining about the comp plan's not good enough, and I kept making changes and trying to make everybody happy, and I couldn't. And so, again, that brought me down. That was frustrating because I was like, God, first I didn't care at all. Now I care. I'm doing everything I can, and I still can't win everybody over. Like, what's the deal? So the self-acceptance was, hey, the reality is there's just so much we can do as leaders. I know my heart's in the right place. I'll do everything I can, but you got to meet me halfway. And most people, thankfully, sort of responded well. But there was always a few that didn't. And I just had to let go of the fact that, hey, I did everything I can. So maybe they have some personal issues. Everyone comes with some baggage. There's things that happen at home that people bring to work. And, so anyway, I hope that helps answer.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, in my role, there's another leader who has a totally different leadership style than me. Especially coming from this program, I try to listen. I try to challenge, and I'm more of let's work through it together. And this other person's leadership styles, it's do it my way or the highway. You either
Yeah.
like me or you don't like me. And there's some parts of the leadership that I like. So I was wondering if like you ever experience those things. Maybe it's just who this person is, and it will never grow from it. But very, very monetarily driven, wants to make a ton of money, doesn't care who takes out of their way to get there. So it's like, what does
Yeah.
that transition? When does that transition happen?
Yeah,
So,
well, you see, yeah, it's interesting. We're all on our personal journeys.
mhm.
We're all at different points on that journey, so
That's what I'm trying to be, is respectful of that and just stay in my lane and drive my team the best way I can, and
yeah.
hope the person drives their
Well,
team.
the last thing I'll say to you is this. I know when I was in the sort of self-awareness phase, I went heavy on enablement, total servant leadership. And I had many of my peers and superiors say, what's wrong with you, man? You're too soft. You're too nice to your people. You need to be more authoritative. And it
I
was
get
like, and it was like, no, wait, stop. No, I was there already. I don't want to go back to that. That's wrong. That is not the way. So I think if I give them the benefit of the doubt, what I alluded to towards the end is, yes, I'm all for servant leadership. I'm all for enabling the team. But like I said, at some point, if you give everything you can, and there's some folks on your team that just still feel like that's not enough, it's okay to use some of your authority at that point. It is appropriate to say, okay, we need to have a different conversation. And it becomes like a performance improvement plan. And I don't want to go there. I don't like that. I don't want to be that person again. But unfortunately, again,
There's
we
metrics to be met.
it's a business. We have to perform. We have to produce results, and I'm the one that's accountable as the team leader. But thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else?
I could jump in next. I'm looking to see if anybody comes off mute. Antoine, thank you so much. There were so many things that resonated with me, and I'm glad we're recording this session because I'm gonna have to go back and watch it. A couple of things that really, some action points that I'm gonna take is looking at my own arcs. I had never thought about that in terms of my leadership changing because we talk about leadership being so, you need to be authentic. It needs to be who you are, and so I was thinking so long that my leadership was stagnant, and so. I think that's really going to be helpful to me coming through. And with that, you sharing your personal experience and Professor McCluskey, and I'm so grateful that you brought that up because I think that that's such a pitfall. I can see it for me that it's like, okay, well, if I'm not doing this, and now I'm right in, self-awareness, I'm in that right spot, and then feeling that space of self-deprecation.
Right.
What advice do you have for leaders that are in that space of manager leader to continue to
Yeah.
go the distance, to not get so hung up in a space of hyper focus on self-awareness or not going back? How do you keep with it?
Yeah, well, not easy, but I will say again, I was lucky in that I had people in my network that were willing to let me articulate my thoughts and just sort of work through it. And Professor McCluskey was again one of those people, and there was others in my life, and especially because I couldn't talk to my wife about it. I didn't want to worry her. I didn't want to burden her, and she's my best friend. I wanted to, but who else could I talk to? So I had to rely on people like, again, the faculty, my classmates, and then people in my personal life, because again, I'm a verbal communicator, just allowed me to sort of speak the words and it helped me sort of figure it out. So I would say continue to have the dialogue with anyone in your network that's supportive and open to letting you express yourself. I had it on one of the slides, and I'll just mention here because I forgot to say it. Part of that sort of arc that I began um, was what I call pruning, or is often referred to as pruning. There were people in my life that I've known for a long time that just very negative energy, very drama, like, and when I mentioned the whole thing with time, I don't want that negative energy. I don't want to constantly hear about drama, like, it's constantly lawsuits or this person did this or that or whatever. And like, I don't have time for that. I'm sorry. Like, if there's something you need me to help you, bail you out, like whatever, I'm your guy. But just all this negativity and it's just not healthy. It's not healthy. So anyway, that, that's uh, that's the best I can offer right now on that one. Just talk to your friends, find those people who are supportive, and lean on them. Anyone else?
Hi, Anton. Hopefully I communicate this question well, but fellow perfectionist, also from Clifton Strings, I'm a maximizer. So I have a really hard time knowing when I've done my best. I feel like there's always more I could do. And I feel like, especially with certain team members, that you might need to support a little bit more, or you might be really going above and beyond to support and do the best for. But
Yeah.
sometimes you have to kind of step back and be like, I've done what I can and I've done my best. So for you, what are some of kind of the signals or triggers for yourself of, hey, I've done what I can, and even if I'm working toward continual improvement,
Yeah.
I've kind of reached my limit here in this specific scenario?
Yeah, well, if I understand correctly, my answer would be, again, there's usually some sort of metric, some sort of outcome that we're all responsible for as a team and then individually. And again, I'm willing to help individual team members, again, overcome obstacles, support them, however. But at some day, the metrics have to start to improve. We need to achieve the outcomes, or at least you want to trend in the right direction. So if I'm understanding you correctly, I too have worked with some folks where the more I give, sort of the worse things seem to get. And it's like, okay, well, I can honestly say I've done everything I can. It seemed to be the discussions turned more into what else can I do for this person versus, well, what are you bringing? Are you bringing 100% of yourself? Are you really trying or not? So at some point you have to have a discussion around, okay, we need to start to see some results. Otherwise, this might not be sort of the right fit, right? Because remember again how I mentioned everyone's on a different point in their arc. And some people are not as enlightened, let's say, are not yet willing to sort of give of themselves. And it's more of sort of the selfishness and taking. And some people will take advantage of that, your generosity. And so something to be mindful for. Again, another pitfall, again, you want to give, you want to be supportive, but you have to be mindful of, again, this is one of the pitfalls maybe people don't talk about a lot publicly. There's some people that take advantage of that and they'll keep taking and taking, but not reciprocating. So to me, it has to be equal.
I think that's so valid. Yeah, because honestly, I've learned a lot kind of in my past years of experience as well of, sometimes your team members get learned helplessness because you're supporting them too much. And so I think that's somewhere that I've had to kind of take a step back a little bit and have that mentality like you brought to mind of, what are you contributing? Are you meeting me halfway? Because ultimately the more I give, maybe you're going to give 20% or, 10% eventually. And it needs to be more than that. And so I think, yeah, that was really helpful to kind of hear that perspective.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Wonderful.
We still have a few minutes left too, and as we can stay on a little bit longer, also up right until 1 o'clock. And I just want to thank Antoine again so much, not only for kicking us off, but for sharing your story so authentically and humbly. And I definitely personally took a lot of things away today that I'm gonna take some action on. Really greatly appreciate it. And we have a feedback form. A humble leader, Antoine, I was laughing about the 360 assessment. He's asked for some feedback, and so I'll put that link in the chat if y'all would kindly take some time to fill that out, to give us some feedback. That would be really beneficial for us. We really appreciate it. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I would invite anyone that's interested, connect with me on LinkedIn. I don't really do social media. I'm on LinkedIn professionally. I do have that YouTube channel that Meredith mentioned where I just like to talk to people for the sake of learning. So if you're interested in being a guest, I'd be happy to chat with you. But yeah, I hope I delivered on my promise. I hope that you walk away feeling like this was a good use of your time. And again, I'm open to continue the conversation with anyone who's interested offline.
100%. Thank you, Antoine, so much. And thank you, everyone, for attending. We have another series coming up in a few weeks with Annalise Morgan. So we'll get that information out. Again, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you again, Antoine. And y'all have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Amazing.
Bye-bye.